Nathan, welcome back to another chess video. So guys, I hope you're getting these. I check them every day. They're either from Coach Ian, Coach Russ. They always have this symbol of the hands. It's the ICN symbol. Check them out. I check them every day because there's so much exciting stuff happening on. I'm just amazed. Okay, and see at the top of the email all the schools together. PS130 Dragons. Bears, the ninjas, the lions, the gladiators, we're all here, okay? The river school's in here, the lions. That's awesome. Now, you'll see the kids from the other schools, and this is young Elliot. He's also there's a Team Shirt Friday. Check this out. Read up. Again, guys, even as a coach, I'm reading these. I'm learning so much. I'm excited. Here's the cool thing, guys. The Star Room. That's a social team activity room. Um, awesome. It goes to 7 p.m. is when it ends. It starts with Coach Matthew doing Puzzle Duel at 10 a.m. Uh, and then Coach James Black takes over and he is going through the games that are playing at 11:30 a.m. every day. This is happening every day. You can play every single day. You can join up on the uh, social team activity room. It's a star room. Every day, talk to the coaches. You might not do it on the day that's not your after school chess team day. You can go every day. You might just forget, so try to remember. Make sure you're getting the emails. If not, reach out, ask. I need to get the email because sometimes your parent will get it and they will forget to give it to you, or they won't know, or it'll go into a different folder. So it's very important to read these. You get to see the growth of the other kids in the different classes. Like everybody's moving up. We got people moving up from under 300 up to under 700 to 1,000 plus. It's so exciting. Okay, now here's the fun thing. And this little guy, Andrew Plaze, Richard, we're doing interviews with the kids that can tell their chess story. Okay, here's Andrew from 281. Okay, he's telling his story. He gets interviewed. You can be interviewed too. You just got to ask. And this is on YouTube. So this is in the email. You just click it. The link um to the team. You click this, okay? Um, and of course, different emails will say different things every day at 9 a.m. is when the email comes out. Look, okay, this comes out but around 9 a.m., right? Great, guys. Okay, now let's get to work. Okay, so this lesson is going to be about activity of pieces. Um, and there might be two lessons because we'll talk about it. Okay, what is activity of pieces? In all the positions we play, all the games we play, we're trying to get active pieces. What does that mean? Well, let's look at this position and then we'll identify exactly what that means. It's something as a chess player you will be striving for in every single position is to activate your pieces. So my internet's a little slow here, but in the opening, okay, so here, the bishop is on its original square on C1, right? Where it starts. Looking over to the other side, it actually can hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares. Sorry, this bishop here is 7 squares from its original position. Bishop is a long-range piece. It's like a long-range archer. Um, Now, on the other hand, the knight on its starting square, well, it can't go to as many squares. It can only hit 3 squares on the opponent's side. If we look at um, the knight doesn't hit any squares on the opponent's side of the board. What is the opponent's side of the board? Well, this is white's side of the board, 4 ranks. That's considered white's half side of the board. Black's half side of the board would be these 4 ranks, the 5th rank to the 8th rank. The bishop This is a question for you. How many squares on the opponent's side is the bishop aiming at right now? Well, we go, okay, d2 is on white side, that's our side. e3, that's on our side. f4, that's on our side. Oh, we got to the other side, right? g5, that's on h6, on the other side of the board. You own these two squares on in black's real estate, right? On black's land. You're aiming inside black's land. This makes the bishop active. A knight is a bit more tricky. A knight, even though it's as much 3 points as much as a bishop, um, it needs to be brought to away from the side of the board to get the full scope. In the center, that's on e4, the knight can aim at, now it can aim at 8 different squares. So knights are not very active on the side of the board. You need to bring them to the center where they can aim at more squares, right? Now, how many squares does a knight control in the opponent's side of the board here? Well, c3, that's on our side, that's white side. d2, that's the white side. f2, white side. g3, white side. g5, that's the opponent's side of the board, right? It's on the other side of the middle. This makes it more active. f6, opponent's side, d6, and c5. This knight is now more valuable than it was on g1 because it owns 4 squares on the opponent's side. And again, it does own 4 squares on your side, and that's helpful too, but it makes it really active if you are aiming at your opponent's squares that's on the other side of the board. Now, when we do put a bishop in the middle of the board, it does become more active, even though on its starting position it did own 2 squares. From d4, let's see how many squares on the opponent's side of the board it is aiming at. We have 4 there, we have 3 there, 7 squares. This is a very active bishop. It's in the center of the board, it's active, okay? What is the center? It is from the middle of the board that most pieces control the greatest number of squares. So you must try to place your pieces. It was just to show you what the center is. The center of the board is these 4 squares. D4, E4, D5, and E5. The middle of the board, this is called the center. Every chess player knows it. It's the center. It's land that you want to own. If you could own this land and have your pieces attacking it and controlling it, then you can control the game. Okay. Squares in the center are very important. If your pieces control the center or are in the center, then they can help support your pieces. They're faster in an attack against the enemy king. If you have a couple knights here, if you have bishops here, they can jump to any part of the board fastest. That's why we want to control the center. You can quickly support any situation that's going on the board at any moment. Now, let's look at what these active pieces do here. Okay, now the bishop here on c4 is a white square is a white bishop. It's active because it's near the center. Also, I just want to mention one thing. Sorry. Now, we talked about the center being the 4 squares. This is the center. Of course, there are 12 squares around those 4 squares. These are important too. You have the 4 center squares, which is the most important. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Around those 4 center squares, those are also important squares. You can own this territory. You can support many different types of plans, whether it's a defensive, right, to rally, to defend against a checkmate, whether you want to stage an attack. If you have your pieces placed here, it can be easily shifted around to perform in the attack. If your pieces are outside or, on the side of the board, on the first rank, if they're still back here sleeping, which I see a lot of games where a lot of pieces get involved in an attack, it's going to take several moves to get there. For instance, here, the knight on b8. It's on its original square, but the bishop's been brought out. And sometimes you guys do bring your bishops to c4 in the opening, right? This is commonplace for a bishop. Here, notice what an active piece can do. Inactive knight, active bishop, you can trap knight. Playing bishop to b5. The knight's trapped. Bishop's active. It's more closer to the center than the knight, and then now the knight's trapped. That is just an example of active piece. Let's look at an active rook now compared to an inactive knight. Well, the rook has been 2 squares in the very center, 2 other squares outside of that in the 12 outside. The knight, active or inactive? Very inactive. Not a very well placed knight yet. It hasn't even moved out. Let's see the power of an active piece. Rook can move to e6. Now the knight on g8 is trapped. The knight is inactive. The rook was able to move into an attack right when you asked. Very active piece, ready to roll. That's where we want our piece center involved. Okay, in your games, you must try sure that all your pieces are active. Every single one of them. How many pieces do you have on the back rank? We have 2 knights, 2 bishops, 2 rooks, a queen, and a king. Of course, knights and bishops, you want to develop as fast as you can, get them into the center. Later, you bring out the other pieces. Nevertheless, let's see here. The white bishop and the black knight are not attacking anything. In fact, the knight attacks no pieces on the other side of the board. The bishop does not attack any pieces on the other side of the board. Well, white can solve this problem. White can activate his bishop simply by clearing the line on the a1 h8 diagonal. And now this bishop is pretty active. More active than it was before. It's aiming at 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, my internet's a little. And 4 squares on the other side of the board. This bishop is more active than the knight on b7. The knight on b7 is going to take, right? If the knight tries to go to a5, there's no future for it. It's on the side of the board. It's very inactive. It still only has. It's not a very active knight. Now the bishop can move around. Can even play a move like to f6, and of course the knight cannot capture pawn. Knight on b3 or on c4. Maybe the knight can go to b7, but it's not going to have anywhere to go. Bishop to f6. I don't know why it's not letting me play. I don't know what's going on in LHS right now, but even if the knight did go back to b7, this bishop is so active, it's so strong, it's hitting so many squares on the opponent's side of the board that the knight cannot go to d8 from b7. It can't go to b7 and to d8 because this bishop's too active. It's restricting the movements of the knight and it's trapped. Active bishop, inactive knight. White would win this game. Okay, let's try a couple puzzles. These are more practical examples, things you might see in your games. We'll look at the active pieces versus the inactive pieces and see what's going on. So so here is white to move. Now let's look at the position. I like white's position here. Let's look at black's pieces first. Let's talk about how bad they are. Knight, not very active. In fact, it has no squares it can really go to. It can go to b7 if it was its move. Looks like it's really the only move it can make. The queen here is very active. It's on d5. That's one of the 4 center squares. It's ready to roll. It's ready to protect. It's ready to attack. It's ready to do anything you need. Knight, not so bad. Not such a badly placed knight. It's owning 2 squares in the center. It's ready to roll. It's ready to jump to e5 and then be involved in an attack. It's ready to defend the king over here. Active piece. Now the bishop on g2. Okay, it's not aiming at any squares in the center right now because it's blocked. But once you move the knight, it's ready to help the queen. It's very well placed here actually because after the knight moves, it will control one square in the center, and after that, because it's line controlling piece, it'll help the queen control the entire diagonal. Pretty strong. How about this rook here on